Penguin Random House Audio presents América, A New History of the New World by Greg Grandin. Read for you by Holter Graham. For Eleanor and Manu, and for Diane, much missed. I can see America seated on liberty's throne, wielding justice's scepter, crowned with glory, revealing to the old world the majesty of the new. Simón Bolívar, 1819. Can we, the republics of the New World, help the Old World to avert the catastrophe which impends? Yes, I am confident that we can. We offer hope for peace and a more abundant life to the peoples of the whole world. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1936. Introduction. On the utility of magpies. The travelers sat silently in Quaker meetings for hours during the day, and visited brothels at night. In Philadelphia, he watched a raucous crowd welcome the arrival of George Washington, with men, women, and children as ecstatic as if the Redeemer had entered Jerusalem. General Washington, the Venezuelan Francisco de Miranda wrote in his journal, was magnificent in his bearing and grace. He embodied virtue and focused all the New World's desires for independence into a single flame. A flame, Miranda said, that belonged to all America. Miranda, as a colonel in the Royal Spanish Army, had already fought on the side of the North American rebel colonists during the bloody siege of Pensacola. He would later go on to defend the French Revolution and lead one of Spanish America's first independence movements. Now, in the middle of 1783, he was beginning a year-long tour of the new United States. Miranda wanted to see how the world's first modern republic fared. He spoke with tradesmen, farmers, and Revolutionary War veterans. In New York's Hudson Valley, he waxed lyrical about the sweet grasses of the field and mistakenly assumed the Catskills were North America's highest point. He dined in gentry estates even as he noticed much hardship amid the wealth. Many of New York's Dutch-speaking farmers couldn't afford shoes, while the well-off men and women alike adorned themselves with silks, perfumes, pomades, and powders. The money spent on such vanity, he noted, would cover a year's interest on the new country's war debt. New York's politicians and preachers professed abolition, Miranda noted. Yet slavery still existed in the state. The number of Negroes is large. In Boston, he was introduced to Phyllis Wheatley, a formerly enslaved West African woman who had won her freedom and became a celebrated poet, only to die penniless. Miranda cited Wheatley as proof that all humans, regardless of color or sex, were rational beings. Miranda's family in Caracas owned slaves, as did Miranda himself. They lugged around his famous library, many bundles of papers, and an ever-growing number of books. While in Philadelphia, he purchased the indenture of a Scottish boy who had arrived in port on a ship carrying over 300 shackled Africans. But Miranda would soon embrace the abolitionist cause as part of a broader belief that all the subjugated peoples of the Americas should be liberated, including Native Americans. When the New World was finally free, Miranda suggested, it might be called Colombia, with the English language U instead of the Spanish O, as in Colombia. A spelling he picked up from Wheatley's Ode to Washington. Celestial choir, enthroned in realms of light, Columbia's scenes of glorious toils I write. The Venezuelan thought both Native Americans and women were more oppressed in the new English-speaking republic than in colonial Spanish America. In the United States, the wives of revolutionary leaders were forced into a monastic seclusion and such submission to their husbands as I have never seen. Boston's General John Sullivan, who gained fame pacifying the British allied Iroquois, kept his wife and numerous children completely segregated from society and without giving the latter formal education. Miranda, his journal pages full of detailed sexual encounters, was appalled when a Shelter Island parson refused to baptize a baby conceived prior to wedlock. In New Haven, Yale's president, Ezra Stiles, gave him a tour of the university. Miranda sat in on a Hebrew lesson, which he enjoyed, and was pleased that optics and algebra were taught simply and naturally. He was shocked, though, that the university offered no modern language instruction, a bad omen for educating modern citizens, thought Miranda, who spoke English, French, and Italian, and read Greek and Latin. Nor was he impressed by Yale's library. Nothing special. He read Cotton Mather's History of New England as curious evidence of fanaticism, and kept himself busy in Sunday New England with a pack of playing cards and flute practice, which violated strict Sabbath restrictions. No kite flying either. Stiles, in his own journal, called Miranda a flaming son of liberty. Miranda took in the full variety of the new republic. He was welcomed everywhere he went, though he was often mistakenly introduced as a Mexican. Most men were polite, but also, he thought, unsocial, or huraño, that is, aloof and disinterested in the wider world. Some of the people he met did ask questions about Spain's American empire. Others proved stubbornly ignorant. In Providence, Miranda visited the estate of Esek Hopkins, who had commanded the rebel navy during the Revolution. Miranda made mention of Mexico City and was surprised to hear Commodore Hopkins respond by saying that there was no such place. A century earlier, New England Puritans had been entranced by Mexico City, the command center of New World popery, with its wide cobbled streets, many horses, and fine carriages. Now, when Miranda tried to correct Hopkins, the Commodore refused to believe him. Very vulgar, Miranda wrote in his journal of the encounter. He found most of the university presidents he met to be equally provincial and pedantic. Miranda admired the United States, its dynamism and early steam power. He liked the psalm singing of Methodists and the organ playing of Episcopalians, but was taken aback at how strictly religious most people were. He thought river baptisms absurd, that they indicated a stubborn, literal-mindedness. There was too much pulpit braying of hatred directed at Jews, Catholics, and Muslims. Miranda singled out one parson for praise, James Redemption Murray, who preached that there was no such thing as damnation. Salvation was universal, Murray said, which Miranda found refreshing compared to Catholic and Protestant brimstone. Miranda was catching the first notes of the Second Great Awakening, a religious revival movement that went in many directions. There was the harshness Miranda criticized, but also a passion for political reform, for making the United States a vital, healthy, democratic, and energetic nation. He was repulsed by the return of Cotton Matherism, but compelled by the energy, by the expectation, the scent of something new on the morning wind. And he shared with many of the leading figures in the awakening the conviction that America, which for him meant all of America, was history's redeemer. One gets a sense from Miranda's diary that he hoped the new United States would overcome the problems he recorded: poverty, slavery, the subordination of women, a tendency toward antisociability, and an occasional flash of unflattering self-regard. The diary also makes clear that Miranda wasn't sure that it could. South America will be to North America, declared the North American Review early in the 1800s, what Asia and Africa are to Europe. Not quite. Europe's liberal capitalist powers, Great Britain, France, and the Netherlands, would rule over culturally and religiously distinct peoples in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. British travelers to India made much of the impenetrability of Hinduism, with its jumble of noises, colors, deities. There is no dignity, said E.M. Forster after entering a...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?